Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Padamhansa Pariprajakacharya Ashto Tilasata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Nam Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj. And thank you, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu, for leading us in Kirtan. And thank you, everyone, for being here for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Monday, February 27th in New York. A day later in Vrindavan. It's the year is 2023. And we are in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, starting tonight the 15th chapter with verse 1. And if someone would like to lead the closing kirtan, please let me know. That would be fabulous. And we're very grateful you could be with us, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Akendra Prabhu. And thank you, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. And thank you to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maitreya Vacha Prajapatyam Tutateja Padatejo Hanam Titihi Tatara Varshani Shatam Shankamana Surardanat. Sri Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, Diti, the wife of the sage Kashyapa, could understand that the sons within her womb would be a cause of disturbance to the demigods. As such, she continuously bore the powerful semen of Kashyap Muni, which was meant to give trouble to others, for 100 years. Purport. The great sage Sri Maitreya was explaining to Vidura the activities of the demigods, including Lord Brahma. When Diti heard from her husband that the sons she bore within her abdomen would be causes of disturbance to the demigods, she was not very happy. There are two classes of men, devotees and non-devotees. Non-devotees are called demons, and devotees are called demigods. No sane man or woman can tolerate the non-devotees giving trouble to devotees. Diti, therefore, was reluctant to give birth to her babies. She waited for 100 years so that at least she could save the demigods from the disturbance for that period. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kata Mahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrashatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lodita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vanshako Pitarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The Diti puts off giving birth for 100 years. That's more or less useless. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. These demons are going to cause trouble for the demigods. So out of her feeling, she puts off the pregnancy, but she's putting off, puts off the birth, but she's putting off something inevitable. The result of the illicit sex will come today or tomorrow. So I'll write something at least. Hare Krishna. Loke tena hata loke lokapala hata jasaha nyavedayan vishvasrijje dvanta vyatikaram disham. By the force of the pregnancy of Diti, the light of the sun and moon was impaired in all the planets, and the demigods of various planets, being disturbed by that force, asked the creator of the universe, Brahma, what is this expansion of darkness in all directions? Purport. It appears from this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam that the sun is the source of light for all the planets in the universe. The modern scientific theory, which states that there are many suns in each universe, is not supported by this verse. It is understood that in each universe, there's only one sun, which supplies light to all the planets. In Bhagavad Gita, the moon is also stated to be one of the stars. There are many stars, and when we see them glittering at night, we can understand that they are reflectors of light, just as moonlight is a reflection of sunlight. Other planets also reflect sunlight, and there are many other planets which cannot be seen by our naked eyes. The demoniac influence of the suns in the womb of Diti expanded darkness throughout the universe. Well, from the verse, that's the main point, that the inauspicious pregnancy or the presence of these demons, even in embryo, was enough to create darkness throughout the universe, so much so that the demigods were disturbed. What's going on here? As far as the cosmography here, it's the modern scientific theory, as far as I don't know, doesn't say that there are many suns in each universe. Each universe, as far as I know, is seen as having its own sun. But in any case, then the question is the sun the center of the universe, or is the sun rotating around the earth? That's a separate issue. But in any case, there is, according to the Vedic conception, one sun per universe. The question of the stars here is also at odds with modern cosmography. According to the modern astronomical views, the stars are like the sun, as far as I know. And according to the Vedic point of view, they're not self-illuminated, they're reflecting light from the sun, as Prabhupada indicates here. Am I right, Doug? Do I have that straight?
Yes, you're correct. It always comes down to what we're defining as a universe. If we're, in this case, defining it as the solar system, then that's correct. On the other hand, depending on how much you believe it, there are certainly plenty of solar systems that have been found, even through direct imaging, that have multiple suns. So, this is an interesting verse. It's very at odds with, I guess, modern astronomy. But yes, also that the other suns are self-illuminating is, of course, the paradigm in modern astronomy.
And the stars also.
Yeah. By that I mean just I'm calling everything that's a star a sun.
Right.
Yeah, they all, through nuclear fusion, are self-illuminating.
So they have their picture and we have our picture.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments so far? Okay. Eva uchuhu tama etad vipo veta samvigna yadvayam brisham nahyavyaktam bhagavata kalena sprishtavartmanaha. The fortunate demigods said, "O great one, just see this darkness, which you know very well, and which is causing us anxieties. Because the influence of time cannot touch you. There is nothing unmanifest before you." Purport. Brahma is addressed herein as Vibhu and as the personality of Godhead. He is the supreme personality of Godhead's incarnation of the mode of passion in the material world. He's non-different in the representative sense from the supreme personality of Godhead, and therefore the influence of time cannot affect him. the influence of time, which manifests as past, present, and future, cannot touch higher personalities like Brahma and other demigods. Sometimes demigods and great sages who have attained such perfection are called Trikalagya. Trikalagya means those who know what's going on within the three phases of time, past, present, and future. Here and in the coming verses, Brahma is going to be addressed with all the honor we usually find given to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a feature found in various places in Srimad Bhagavatam and elsewhere. The representative of the Lord is addressed in terms of the Lord's qualities, which the demigod has to some extent. The influence of time cannot touch you. Of course, that's perhaps how the demigods look at it. From the point of view of Earth, it seems as if the demigods are untouched by time. The demigods are sometimes called Amar or deathless because their lifetime is so long by human calculation. Yes. So as we're thinking that the demigods are practically immortal, the demigods think of Brahma as being immortal. But we find, of course, from Srimad Bhagavatam that at the end of his lifetime, he also dies. It may be 8,400,000 times 1,000 times 3 times, times 1,000 times 2 times 12 times 30 times 100 years.
That's 311 trillion years.
And that's quite the time span. He lives as long as the universe. So from that point of view, Brahma may seem, even to the demigods, to be immortal. There's in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, if I remember, this discussion goes on. Perhaps it's with Indra, where he's been praised as immortal. And when Gopkumar praises him, Narada praises him as immortal, he says, no, I'm not immortal. I'm also afraid of the end of my life. And Brahma also has that same characteristic. I forget now which section of Brihad Bhagavatam that's in, whether it's in the section about Indra, the section about Brahma, but it applies to both of them. So the influence of time cannot touch you as far as the demigods see. But after all, so many demigods come and go during the lifetime of Brahma. But Brahma also has the end of his life. But so Asprishta, Vartmana, your path is not affected by time, Kalena. Because you're Bhagavan, you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is interesting, though, that although Brahma is limited by time, Dviparartha time, that means the 2 halves of Brahma's lifetime, still, he transcends time in this sense, that past, present, and future are all known to him. According to ordinary understanding, we can know the past to some extent through books and testimony. We know the present to some extent through, again, testimony and direct perception. And the future is all speculative. We don't know what the future will bring. Or we know to some extent by mental speculation or experience, we know that tomorrow the sun will rise at such and such time, the sun will set at such and such time. So we know something of the future, but so much of the future is just beyond our understanding. From parapsychology, which I cite from time to time, there are apparent indications that one may know the future. The effect is called precognition, and it's been studied especially with a statistical emphasis and the phenomenon appears to be verified. Some people can know at least something of the future. But here, the effect is great. The sages and Brahma can know past, present, and future in detail. So that's something extraordinary from our point of view. But in the Vedic literature, we run across this fairly often. I might also say that Brahma's Trikala Gya, he knows past, present, and future. We don't even know what's going on now. We're proud that we know the present and we think we know something of the past. But so often the past, as we've inherited it, is all lies and rubbish. And the present, as we understand it, is also rubbish. We're fooled so often. So what we're told is the present, what's really going on, what we read in our newspapers. There's a newspaper in Calcutta, Vartaman, means the present, right? Yeah, the newspaper is called the present. But what you read in Vartaman may or may not be what's happening at present. So we're Trikala Agya, we don't know the future. Even the future that's obvious, sometimes people don't see that. Even what is that? They don't see that their death is coming. Pashanapi napashyati. Despite all the evidence, they just don't see it. And so many other things that they don't want to acknowledge about the future. They just hide from. So Trikala Agya, we deny the past, we're ignorant about the future, we deny the future. And even the present, we deny, misunderstand, are lied to about, and so on. Saraswati says, demigods, including Brahma, fear death. How do you explain ordinary conditional souls like soldiers with no Vedic knowledge, willingly embracing death and seemingly having no fear to face imminent death? The demigods have Vedic knowledge, so they shouldn't fear death. One thing we can say is that fear of death proceeds from focus on sense gratification. Bhayam dutiya viniveshita syat. Fear in Bhagavatam is said to come from forgetfulness of Krishna, or thinking that there's something other than Krishna. So the more that we think of sense gratification, or the more we become attached to sense gratification, or the more we forget Krishna, the more we become open to fear. So this is there. The demigods, Muhyanti at Surya, they also become bewildered, even they forget Krishna. And we hear how they're attached to their sense gratification. So they're also in fear. Yes. Doug says, can you help me understand how the great sages, knowing in great detail, past, present, and future, how does this leave the door open for free will? It seems like a deterministic universe. Yeah, this question comes up from time to time. If the future is known, Krishna says, Vedaham samatitani, vartamanani charjana, vishyani chaputani, mam tu veda in a question. I know past, present, and future, although no one knows me. So if Krishna, at least, as well as sometimes other sages, know the future in great detail, where's the space for free will? It appears that even though free will is available, and even though the future is open, Krishna can still know what will happen. I've given the example, again from parapsychology, that well, before we go there, yeah, remind me that I want to come back to determinism, but in parapsychology, the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, now closed, did a series of experiments with what they called remote viewing, in which targets, geographical places with distinctive qualities, were chosen randomly from a pool of possible places. A random generator was involved, and by some, we hope, completely random process, a place would be chosen. It might be a seaside scene, it might be an industrial plant, it might be a mountain, or it might be a shopping center. But whatever it was chosen at random. And a photograph of it, or it would be recorded, this was the place, and a person would be sent to that place and asked to broadcast what he or she saw, broadcast mentally what they were seeing. And there'd be a subject seated in the lab who would be asked to receive what he or she thought was being broadcast. And the results were scored and judged by both a statistical process and an impressionistic process. Scores of 1 or 0 were given for, is it outside or is it inside? Is it a nature scene or is it a man-made scene? Are there vertical shapes or, so on and so on, things that you could easily put into a dyad, put into a pair. So, and then you get a simple objective score. And the subjects were also asked to write their impressions, to describe their impressions of what they saw. And the impressions were judged by a panel of judges how well does this fit the scene? And both in the statistical scores and the impressionistic scores, there were statistically significant, small but statistically significant positive results. So it seemed that some people at least, had some ability to see things beyond their sensory realm, beyond their sensory reach. Okay, so that was the experiment. And an elaboration of the experiment was that they had the same subject in the same room, doing the same thing, and the same broadcaster broadcasting a scene chosen by a random process, but the choice was made and the broadcasting was done in the future. Tuesday, the person would be sitting in the lab writing down his impressions, and Friday, the broadcast, the place would be chosen, and the broadcaster would try to convey his thoughts, broadcaster's thoughts, and still they got positive statistical results. That means that there were people able to see the future, even though it was open. There was a random number generator that was going to choose which place it was going to be. Still, they got statistically significant results. So how is that possible? I don't really know. But it seems that one can know this indicates that one can know the future, suggests at least, one can know the future even when the future is open. Other than, of course, by deduction, we have a candy, we have a child, and we know that in 10 minutes, the child is going to go for the candy. That's different. But this is, something you can't deduce. You have to perceive it, and they perceived it. Apart from that, the universe is, first of all, largely deterministic. We're born and it's determined we're going to die. Jatasya idruvo mityur. It's for sure that if you were born, it's already decided you're going to die. And a lot of other things are also fixed, determined, according to our karma. There's no escaping it. Not that everything is just open. We all have free will. We can do whatever we like. You make your own destiny. We have all the space in the world. It's all up to us. And it's just our power of determination and our imagination and blah, 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 blah. That's all nonsense. There's so much that's determined that we have no control over whatsoever. In my book, I've given the example, you're born in a particular place, so you're going to speak a particular language, you're going to eat a particular food. These things are determined. It's not that, well, I was born in Spain, but I think I'd rather speak Czech. Grow up speaking Czech, you're going to speak Spanish. So these things are determined. So much is determined. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada speaks of tiny free will. Tiny free will, not expansive, extensive, all-embracing free will, tiny free will, which Srila Prabhupada basically defined as we can surrender to Krishna or we can surrender to Maya. When we surrender to Maya, basically, she's calling the shots. And therefore, so much will be simply determined by Maya's arrangement. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha hamkara vimutatma partaham iti manvate. In the Bhagavad Gita, everything is being done by the workings of material nature and its three modes. But due to false ego, I think I'm the one who's making it happen. I'm doing it. Vimutatma, thoroughly bewildered. I think I'm doing it. I'm a slave of the workings of material nature. I'm being dragged along by the powerful waves of material nature. And I think it's all up to me. This is not so. So the universe is largely deterministic. It is largely deterministic. But there is some freedom, which Again, Prabhupada said, surrender to Krishna, surrender to Maya. I once asked a question of Srila Narayan Maharaj about to what extent do we have free will in ordinary things? Suppose you're in front of a fruit stand. Do you have a choice whether you're going to take oranges or bananas or apples? To what extent can we do that? He gave an interesting answer. He said it depends on the three modes of what qualities we've picked up from the three modes of nature. A person in the mode of ignorance has practically no free choice. Just like an animal, the dog is going to bark. He can't think about it. He can't consider whether barking would be wise or foolish. He just has to bark because he's just a dog. So a person in the mode of ignorance, he has no higher, he's so faculties, he's so limited that he can hardly make choices. And the person in the mode of passion has greater scope. He has his head on his shoulders. He can choose to some extent. But he's again limited because of his passions. He's going to choose according to his thirst for enjoyment or thirst for accomplishment because of his nature of wanting to do things and accomplish things. So that's going to limit and direct the choices that he makes. So he has more freedom, but the person in the mode of goodness has still greater freedom because he's detached and peaceful. So the person in passion has to go after something, whatever it is. He sees something fantastic to eat, or he sees a beautiful girl, and it's like, he has to go for it. But because a person in the mode of goodness is peaceful, self-controlled, detached, situated in knowledge, and so on, he has greater freedom. He can think, well, yeah, sure, nice, but what will be the consequences and where will this go? So he can he has scope for greater freedom in making choices. But he too is dictated to by the mode of goodness. Goodness also limits. Goodness also directs the choices that we make. So he has greater freedom, but still limited. The only person who has total freedom is Krishna, Swarat. He can do absolutely, in the true sense of absolutely, whatever he wants. That's Krishna. No one can dictate. No one can require. No force, no anything can require that Krishna do anything. It's all up to him, Swarat, completely independent. And we talk about independence, we want independence, we assert independence, and yet we're totally subordinate to forces beyond our control, either Krishna or Maya. We're not independent beings. Does that cover the territory reasonably?
Yeah, thank you so much. And that helps me frame it a lot, because it almost sounds like it's a gradient of levels of conditioning in terms of the minute independence that we have. But then Krishna himself is not subject to the gunas or kala or time. It's outside of time. So in that sense, past, present, and future can be seen. Is that a good way to understand it?
Yeah. For Krishna, in one sense, there is no time, or there's no time limit, no barrier. That's in the future. You can't know that. Krishna, past, present, future, he's equally capable of understanding all three. Yeah, good. And yes, gradients of freedom. Thank you. Let's see what else is here. Okay, we did come back to determinism. Then is it a matter of the sages, Panchatattva, knowing things in more general detail, and not that the sages are in knowledge of every single action and reaction down to each moment? Well, I haven't studied the matter in detail. We hear that broadly that the sages know past, present, and future. To what extent do they know past, present, and future? Not every single detail, certainly. If they knew that, they'd be on the equal level with Krishna. He knows every single detail. And every single detail where? There's so many, each universe is so huge with so many planets and so much space. And then there are unlimited universes. So how much do the sages know in terms of scope? Do they know what's going on in New Jersey or in Haridwar in past, present, future? Do they know what's going on throughout all the millions of universes? There has to be a scope limit there. And I suspect that there's a limit on detail also, that they may or may not have access to knowledge at XYZ level of detail. I don't have a Shastra Praman on that, but there's a verse, my dear Lord, if the living beings were unlimited like you, is spoken by the personified Vedas. I think there'd be no question of they're being subordinate to your control. I think that's maybe the Shastra Praman. So we all have the qualities of Krishna up to a certain extent. When the 64 qualities of Krishna are given, the human beings can have them to a certain percent. The demigods can have them to a still greater percent. Then Lord Shiva has them to a still greater percent. But only Krishna has all these qualities fully. And one quality, if I recall, is all-knowing. So I may have that quality to some particular extent. Someone may have it more. Someone else may have it still more. And Lord Shiva still more. Finally, we come to Krishna. He has complete awareness of every action, reaction, down to the moment. Then Panchatattva says, in regard to Krishna's complete awareness of the future, can't Krishna stand outside of time and see the whole show? Time, after all, is his impersonal manifestation, and therefore subordinate to him. Even if we were to describe the future as having infinitely multifarious paths, depending upon the exercise of free will of the living entities, wouldn't Krishna be conscious of each and every one of those eventualities? Yeah, that's essentially what Doug said, that Krishna is unaffected by the limitations imposed by time. So for him, it's not a problem. For us, time presents real difficulty. But for Krishna, what is the difficulty? Time, space, nothing limits Krishna. Tulsi Priya says the real freedom is the freedom to not choose something, to not feel compelled. Yes, those who are free from desires, free from the pushings of the modes of nature, can actually make choices to the extent that they have that freedom. Yes. Otherwise, we're described as godas, slaves to our senses. Also, Tulsi Priya says, just to count to 311 trillion, speaking one number per second would take nearly 10 million years. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, it means our ability to know is limited. I think that's the point. And Praveen has quoted, Sukha Sangena Padnati Gana Sangena Chanaka. Even in the mode of goodness, we're limited by a sense of happiness, sense of knowledge, and so complacency. Murari Gupta. If the happiness and distress of non-devotees are fixed for this life, is the greater freedom of the mode of goodness of any value? Yes, it is. Or, depending on your point of view, from one point of view, conditioning is conditioning. So any conditioning is all troublesome. So even the person in the mode of goodness is conditioned soul, and who cares whether you're a first class, second class, or third class prisoner? You're a prisoner. That's your position. So from one point of view, no, doesn't mean anything. It's ultimately pointless. From another point of view, the mode of goodness is conducive to spiritual realization. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. From the mode of goodness, knowledge arises. And this is favorable for spiritual advancement and ultimately for development of Krishna consciousness. Also, the happiness and distress of non-devotees are fixed. That if you're in the mode of goodness, the fixture, you'll have a better mix. You'll be happier. Sukhat, what is that? Sattvat Sukha Sanjayati. I think that's, yeah. Sattvat Sukha Sanjayati. From the mode of goodness comes happiness. But so again, so what? So you're relatively happy because you're living in the woods and eating natural food, and you have a peaceful life, and you're reading books, and you're able to have a clear mind and meditate and whatever all else. And ultimately you die. So from that point of view, even to be in the mode of goodness is useless. Therefore, Krishna says, Nistragunya Bhavarjan. Nistragunya Bhavarjan. Trigunya Vishaya Veda Nistragunya Bhavarjan. Our goal is not to come to the mode of goodness, but to transcend even the mode of goodness. Anything else? Okay. The demons to be born of Diti will follow their predetermined path. They're born of lust, and they're born with a demonic nature. What is that? Abhijatos heart. Dampo, Darpo, Bhimanascha, Krodha Parushamevacha, Aganam Abhijatasya, Partha Sampadam, Asarim. So those who are demonic are born with these qualities. The pride, arrogance, false prestige, anger, and so on. So these qualities are like inherent in their conditioned existence, their psychophysical nature, determined from before birth, is going to be that way. And it's this whole modern idea that everybody's equal, everybody has the equal opportunities. It's just such rubbish. Just physically speaking, someone's born strong and is going to grow up to be powerful physically. Someone else is born weak or disabled. That's not something you just can toss aside. There'll be so many other physical characteristics determined by birth. Determined by birth. In extreme cases, there's, what should we say, severe mental impairment or severe physical impairment, or practically no scope even for living more than a few days or a few weeks. These things are there. Not that we just toss them aside and pretend that we can overcome everything, because there's no such thing as destiny and no such thing as determinism. So that's the gross body, and the same thing applies to the subtle body. So these subtle bodies of these two demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, are already there from the time of conception. From the time of conception, it's understood then, we see that before birth already, they're causing trouble for the universe. They're demonic in mentality and powerful. Someone may be born with a demonic mentality, but be essentially inconsequential. But these demons are dangerous because they have these demonic qualities and power. So even from within the womb, they're already disturbing the universe, to say nothing of what we expect from them later. So therefore, Krishna says, Abhijatos Yupanda, the godly qualities and ungodly qualities appear from the very beginning. One is born with these qualities. And of course, why? According to my previous desires, my previous karma, I take birth with a particular mentality, with a particular embodiment, as a continuation of my previous life. It's not random or unfair or by chance. Everything is still governed by cause and effect here. So that we'll find they have to be demonic. This can change by the influence of devotional service, by association of devotees. Everything can change. Otherwise, on the material platform, this is how it is. All right, shall we have kirtan? I think Panchatattva Prabhu has volunteered.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajak Ashto Tulasita Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundi Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Tham ki jai. Navadip Tham ki jai. Jagannath Puri ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Govardhana Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much for that kirtan, Panchatat Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Mahesh. Oh, thank you for your kirtan.
Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Doug. Hare Krishna.
There's just so much to this Krishna consciousness. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nina. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Maharaj.
Shubham. Thank you,
Thank you, Panchatattva Prabhu. Beautiful kirtan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kantiya Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
Haribol, Haribol.
Hare Krishna.